Kicking off this list of some of the best survival horror games ever is Soma. That's right, this is a lesser known game from the makers of Amnesia: The Dark Descent. Soma is a sci-fi horror game with much of the same atmospheric and gameplay style of Amnesia, but with a much heavier emphasis on the storytelling and the dialogue, leading to a very interesting exploration of the character Simon Jarrett. Now, the game was very, very well received, and it's right up your alley if you're looking for another good first-person survival horror game, because they're hard to come by right now since the market was so oversaturated with a ton of crappy ones, and it's a good way to kick off this list. At number 9, Condemned Criminal Origins. This is a game that was pretty overlooked when it first came back out in 2005, but it has since garnered a bit of a cult following due to it holding up very well over time. Condemned is a very brutal first-person survival horror game where you play as an investigator who has to look for clues from a series of demented crimes. The game has a very heavy focus on puzzle solving and melee combat, and the violence, well, it's extremely realistic to say the least, giving it this extra layer of uneasiness when you have to face off against psychos trying to chop you in half. This is one of my favorite games of all time. I played through the entire thing. I'm talking about Fear. The franchise never got back on its feet after it fell down, which it sucks. The original Fear is one of the best survival horror games ever, but the series quickly fell apart after that due to the 2 lackluster sequels and the awful spin-off Fear Online. However, this list is about good horror games, and the original Fear is absolutely worthy of a spot on it today. Fear mixed the shooting games like Ghost Recon and Half-Life, but it was terrifying. It was claustrophobic. It had supernatural enemies that can mess with your head. It was super effective. The game, if you've never played it, you should go try it. At number 7, speaking of games that make you feel claustrophobic, let's talk about Alien Isolation. That's right, this thing had excellent world building, map design, and enemy AI. Alien Isolation takes place after the events of the original Alien movie and has you playing as Ellen Ripley's daughter as she sets out to find her mom, but ends up coming face to face with the xenomorph and is completely stripped of any tools to fight back. Alien Isolation, it's like Amnesia, but in space, and it's definitely one of the best movie licensed games to come out in a long time, and that's saying a lot because usually movie licensed games suck. At number 6, Outlast. It was a very Amnesia-style game as well that arguably set off the recent trend in gaming for first-person horror games where you don't fight back. Released in 2013 for the PC and later for consoles, Outlast had you playing as a journalist investigating a psychiatric hospital, and you find some pretty horrific things inside. Much like Amnesia and Soma, you can't fight back against your enemies in Outlast, and the game revolves more around puzzle solving and finding ways to outsmart and outlast, you get what I did there, your enemies before they rip your guts out. It's just a shame that Outlast 2 wasn't nearly as good as the original. Cracking into the top 5 today, Resident Evil 7. Now, the RE franchise is pretty much the epitome of hit or miss. It seems the games are either excellent or they're awful, and RE7 definitely fits into that excellent category. It brought back the series to its horror roots, but in a fresh new way, bringing the player into first-person perspective, also introducing a new story with new characters, and setting the game in an extremely claustrophobic and small-scale farmhouse as opposed to a much larger, more explosive setting. RE7 was a great breath of fresh air for the franchise, although you have to wonder if Capcom is going to mess it all up again when we get to RE8. At number 4, System Shock 2. This is a cult classic horror game that took the best elements of survival horror games and action RPGs to create this super terrifying sci-fi experience. You played as a soldier on a space station after a horrific infection killed most of the crew, and you have to find out what happened, while also avoiding the evil AI that took over the ship. The game was unfortunately a financial flop, but it has since revisited and is now regarded as one of the best horror games of all time. Plus, the team ended up making a spiritual successor a few years later called, you may know this one, BioShock. At number 3, Amnesia: The Dark Descent. Now, I've mentioned that Amnesia, I've mentioned it a lot on this list, but let's give it an official entry. It was a truly unique experience when it came out back in 2010. At that time, it was pretty much unheard of to have a survival horror game where you couldn't fight back. It also innovated with the sanity mechanics that mess with your game if you stay in the dark too long, and it gave players the tools to create their own custom stories, which was pretty cool. It also gave it almost endless replayability. Amnesia: The Dark Descent is without a doubt one of the scariest games of all time, and it is well deserving of the number 3 spot on the list today. Let's go back to the Resident Evil franchise for number 2, and, it's number 4. Number 4 is at number 2, Resident Evil 4. That's right, this thing was excellent. It came out in 2005 to critical acclaim for the changes in gameplay, the fun story that was extremely campy but also extremely fun for that very reason, and the monster design that was truly terrifying, giving the game plenty of cheesy horror comedy but also plenty of genuine scares along the way. RE4 started off as a GameCube exclusive, but that was so successful that it has been since ported to basically every platform. So if you've never played it, go pick it up. And at number 1 today, a lot of you probably guessed this one, it is Silent Hill 2. Perhaps one of the best examples of storytelling and world building in a video game ever. Silent Hill 2 takes the spot. It takes the cake. It takes everything. It told the story of James, that's my name too, a man who receives a letter from his deceased wife to come meet her at this strange isolated town that he quickly finds out is full of horrific monsters, all which represent some aspect of his subconscious. As the story unfolds, you'll find out more and more about James' past and what really brought him to the town and if he'll ever be able to leave. Silent Hill 2 has some of the best atmosphere of any video game ever made, and just walking around the town without even seeing a monster is enough to get you on the edge of your seat. And there you have it, my friends. Those are 10 of the best survival horror games ever made. In the comment section, let me know, what is your all-time favorite horror video game? My name is Chaos. This has been another episode of Gaming Facts by Gameology, and I will see you guys soon.